Namo Butsu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, in whichever realms of existence you are, whatever mind states you're in, whatever conditions you're in, whatever of the multifaceted and multidimensional, multi-universal worlds of Buddhism you're in, you are welcome to my channel, and welcome to the first actual episode, the pilot episode of the Lotus-Pod, where we travel through in my Lotus-Pod through the vastness of the worlds of Buddhist cosmology. So get ready, buckle up, strap in, because this first episode, we're going to time travel. I want to start with that because I'm going to be the next actual Shaku Brothers episode is going to be dealing with kind of time related things when it comes to the teaching. So, and also coming up on New Year's, you know, the Chinese or Losar, Tibetan Vajrayana New Year. I wanted to do a kind of time related, episode. And also it's the place we need to start if you're going to explore Buddhist cosmology. I feel like you got to go back to the beginning. So we're going to go back to the beginning, not the beginning. There's no the beginning in Buddhism. There's just, beginningless past. But at least we got to go back to the beginning of our current Mahakalpa. And that's what we're going to be dealing with. So strap in. I've got my Kala Chakra time machine here that I created using the NightCafe AI generator studio for this occasion. I wanted to create a kind of Kala Chakra looking time machine to travel with. So you got, it's kind of very, Kala Chakra Buddhist ish looking, and you got these, especially also these other nodes over here. We'll call them other nodes that kind of have that kind of Vimana kind of look. So we're only, instead of traveling in space, we're traveling in time. So anyway, so buckle up. So let's do it. Let's start the time travel back to the beginning of our current Mahakalpa, and I'm going to share my screen so that you're going to see, the first thing you're going to see is the studio creation, because I literally created it just now. So bear with me a sec. There we go. So yeah, here we are. So we're going to start with, and this is I'm going to be reading from the Tibetan Buddhist Encyclopedia, which is very excellent source of information. I also use there's a Dharma wiki for this kind of stuff. That's good. And Wikipedia is decent as well. But and I think they're similar. Anyway, but at least in the structure of the discussion. But here we go. So here we go. Temporal cosmology. So Buddhist temporal cosmology describes how the universe comes into being and is dissolved. Like other Indian cosmologies, it assumes an infinite span of time and is cyclical. This does not mean that the same events occur in identical form with each cycle, but merely that, as with the cycles of day and night or summer and winter, certain natural events occur over and over to give some structure to time. The basic unit of time measurement, so in other words, it is not linear. Sorry if there's any Deep Space Nine fans out there. Anyways, I'm not really a huge fan of the new Star Treks, but I certainly love the old ones. Anyways, the pre 2005 Star Trek. Anyway, let's not get too distracted there. So the basic unit of time measurement in the Mahakalpa is, The basic unit of time measurement is the Mahakalpa, or great eon. The exact length of time in human years is never defined exactly, but it is meant to be very long, to be measured in billions of years, if not longer. Probably more like trillions, gazillions of years, multiple gazillions of years anyway. A Mahakalpa is divided into 4 kalpas, or eons, each distinguished from the others by the stage of evolution of the universe during that kalpa. The 4 kalpas are, I'll probably be able to pronounce some of these. I'm not going to try to pronounce some of the other ones though. So this is the Vivartakalpa, or eon of evolution. During this kalpa, the universe comes into existence. This one I'm not going to try to pronounce. Then comes the eon of evolution. Evolution duration. During this kalpa, the universe remains in existence in a steady state. Then there's the Samvartakalpa, eon of dissolution. During this kalpa, the universe dissolves. And then not going to try to pronounce that, eon of dissolution duration. During this kalpa, the universe remains in a state of emptiness. Each one of these kalpas is divided into 20 Antara kalpas. This is very important. Antara kappa is the Pali way it's spelled or pronounced. Inside eons is what that means. So let me read that again. Each of these kalpas is divided into 20 Antara kalpas, each of about the same length. So that's the eon of dissolution duration. This division is merely nominal, as nothing changes from one Antara kalpa to the next. But for the other 3 kalpas, it marks an interior cycle within the kalpa. So I think what we'll do really quickly is we're going to go over to the definition of Mahakalpa and talk about that for a minute. So a Mahakalpa is equal to 300,000 saras, and 1 sara is the time required to exhaust the sands of 7 Ganges. Each Ganges being 500 yojanas, or 2,250 miles in length, 2.25 miles in breadth, and 50 dhanas, or 100 yards in depth, at the rate of putting 100 years for the removal of 1 grain of sand. So you can see that's a very, very long time. So that's equal to 300,000 saras, and 1 sara is the time required to exhaust the sands of the Ganges, with all those measurements, at the rate of putting 100 years for the removal of 1 grain of sand. So that's like a ridiculously long time. So just think, I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's to get your head around that amount of time. So just think of it in, I guess, just gazillions of, bazillions of years of time in an unimaginably long period of time. So Mahakalpa, Maha means great. Obviously, Kalpa is a reference to the extended expanse of time, an age, or a day of Brahma. Traditionally, it is said that there are 4 kalpas: formation, existence, destruction, and emptiness. That's what we just kind of explained on the other page. Each portion is called, a Samkhya Kalpa. Each of those 4 that we went over on the other page. All 4 together are the lifespan of a are the lifespan of a world, and collectively are a complete cycle called Mahakalpa. Each of the four principal kalpas is subdivided into 20 Antara kalpas or small kalpas. Yeah, I think this was mentioned on the other page. There are different distinctions and illustrations of kalpas. In general, a small kalpa is represented as 16,800,000 years, and that's a small kalpa. A kalpa, I guess there's a regular kalpa, is represented as 336 million years. And a Mahakalpa is 1,334,000,000 years. Yet these numbers are symbolic, not literal. So I'm not sure where that reference comes from, because I think there's much longer periods of time that they represent. I think those. Not sure where that actually source. So it's saying down here, this says the source of this is wisdom, wisdom lib, or probably wisdom library. So I think these must be, yeah, as it says, kind of numbers are symbolic, not literal. So, it's a long time. Let's just say it's a long time. Yeah. Anyway, I would say it's more like, it should be like, anyway. Truthfully, so and this is a quote from somewhere, not sure where. Truthfully, the quantities of years assigned to a cosmic day are symbolic. The cosmic night arrives when the ingathering of I have no idea. I'm not even going to read the rest of that. It sounds like a bunch of rubbish nonsense. Anyway, so sorry about that. Anyway, so just it's a very long time. The Mahakalpa is a very long time. I think it should be probably represented as 3 or 4 times as long as these are giving, or maybe 10 times as long as these are giving. But anyway, there are different sort of methods of defining that. Okay, so so we're going to start with the Kalpa, the Vivartakalpa, the Eon of Evolution. The Vivartakalpa begins with the arising of the primordial wind, which begins the process of building up the structures of the universe that had been destroyed at the end of the last Mahakalpa. And so you see, yeah, this is the beginning. This is just like the beginning of this past Mahakalpa. There have been bazillions before, or however many, just beginningless time before of Mahakalpas, immeasurably. So, as the extent of the destruction can vary, the nature of this evolution can vary as well, but it usually takes the form of beings from a higher world being born into a lower world. So the example of the Mahabrahma being the Mahabrahma being the rebirth of a deceased Adasvara Deva is just one instance of this, which continues throughout the Vivartakalpa until all the worlds are filled with the Brahmaloka down to the Nakara. So the Brahmaloka down to the Nakara, Nagara being the hells in Buddhism, Buddhist cosmology. During the Vivartakalpa, the first humans appear. They are not like present day humans. So this is key, because this is going to be our realm mostly, going to be important to talk about this. It's, at some point, going to be exploring lots of different worlds in Buddhism in this series, but it's very important. This part is very, very important and relevant to us in this day and age. So anyway, us humans in here and now, always comes back to here and now. So referring to humans here, so during the first Vivartakalpa, sorry, not during the first, during the Vivartakalpa, the first humans of this Mahakalpa appear. They are not like present-day humans, but are beings shining in their own light, capable of moving through the air without mechanical aid, um, living for a very long time and not requiring sustenance. They are more like a type of lower deity, that's what I was just thinking, going to say, than present day humans are. And I think this bit about moving through the air without mechanical aid, I think that can mean flying, floating, levitating, or it could mean like, do you just transport, like we just can move in, these human beings can move kind of interdimensionally, or through a portal, or through, can just, you know, uh, you know, dematerialize and rematerialize elsewhere, kind of thing. Um, so let's look at that. It says air. It's pointing to air. Let's just see if that's. Yes. See. Okay. Yes. There we go. So air is often seen as a universal power or pure substance. It is. So this is in the spiritual sense, in this Mahakalpa. I think that's when they're moving through this, through air. When you hear other, because there's like Bhumadevas, there's like intermediate devas between kind of that kind of share the human realm and the deva realms that can move through through the same way through air, quote unquote. So yeah, just briefly visit this, but air is often seen as a universal power or pure substance. It is supposed fundamental. It is supposed to be of fundamental importance to life, can be seen in such this. I'm not sure about this sentence, but what it's trying to say, it is supposed that it is of fundamental importance to life, as can be seen in such words as aspire, inspire, okay, perspire, and spirit, all derived from the Latin spirare. So there's things about the Greek and Roman tradition here. Let me just see. Let's bring it back to the kind of things that would be more related to Buddhism. So in Hinduism, we'll just kind of talk about that because that's kind of there's some context for that, where the Nirmanakaya Buddha, appeared in a kind of the Hindu lands of our world. In Hinduism, Vayu, also known as Vata, Pravana, or Prana, is a primary deity who is the father of Bhima and the spiritual father of Lord Hanuman. As the words for air, Vayu, or wind, Pavana, is one of the the five elements in Hinduism. The Sanskrit word Vata literally means blow, Vayu, blower, prana, breathing. So it there we go, bring it to the breath of life. So I think it kind of means something more than just a physical air, type of thing, as we refer to it, like as modern humans. Yes, here we go. So yeah, Chinese tradition. Air is not one of the traditional five Chinese classical elements. Nevertheless, the ancient Chinese concept of qi, or qi or qi, is believed to be close to that of air. Qi, or qi, is a fundamental concept of traditional Chinese culture. Qi is believed to be part of every living thing that exists as a kind of life force or spiritual energy. It is frequently translated as energy flow or literally as air or breath. There we go. See, it's more, it's when it's talking about air in this context of humans moving through air, it's something more than just physical air. You know, it's a much something more subtle, something more sort of metaphysical in the spiritual kind of sense, and in the Buddhist cosmology kind of sense. Um, in Mandarin Chinese, it is pronounced something like qi in English, but the tongue position is different. The concept of qi is often reified. However, no scientific evidence supports its existence. Well, scientific evidence, quote unquote, you know, that's a tool for some things. It has its limits. Science has its limits. It's fair to say. And actually, if you look at science and you take it as far as will go in the various disciplines, it will point you in the direction that Buddhism is pointing people, or that the Taoist religions are, pointing people. It does. It just does. So yeah, the element of air also appears as a concept in the Buddhist religion, which has an ancient history in China. So yeah, um, just see if there's anything else kind of relevant to the air bit here really quickly, because this is all kinds of other traditions. I don't want to get too far off in left field. In East Asia, air is seen as the equivalent of wood. Interesting. Air is represented, I don't know, to that. A yoke to the Hindus. Interesting. Anyway, that's interesting. In East Asia, again, I guess this for this was Wikipedia, so we'd have to look at Wikipedia where these sources are coming from. But anyway, take it for what it's worth. Everything I'm reading here, take it for what it's worth. But anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting because so what the bottom line is, um, in Buddhism, when it's talking about moving these beings moving through air, and these humans of this much earlier time moving through air, it's not like us. It's not like just physical air, although that might think that may one level of the meaning of it. Um, so where are we here? So again, these humans are not like present day humans. They are beings shining in their own light. That's an important thing. So the it probably gets into this uh, somewhere here. We'll get into this, but where the original beings, it kind of was referring to this very briefly and barely in the earlier part that we were reading on this page, about the beginnings of it. So where these higher beings that are in these very, very high, subtle thought kind of consciousness only related realms of mind states. They're just very high, very subtle, very advanced, very that's where and they're like of the highest of these is where these kind of first beings come into existence, and they're kind of just lights that appear kind of almost like the stars, the original like form of the stars almost, or you know that's the whole thing we'll get into at some point, is in the implications of stars being beings, actual beings. But anyway, so in Buddhism, but these original like lights, kind of very subtle. There's still a very subtle form of light that kind of manifested into the lower level of during that early part of the Mahakalpa, of things coming into beings coming from a higher realm into a lower realm, and then the first, like, and then eventually there's this like honey substance that forms on some subtle level of manifestation, and those lights are kind of drawn to that, and then they sort of ingest it somehow, or are consuming it somehow, and then that starts going into lower realms of more physicality and things. And that's kind of, this all happens before we get kind of to the human bit. But I think there's this aspect that these beings first go from a higher level to a lower level, they're like light. They're shining in their own right initially, and then they decline and they're not shining in their own light, of themselves, or not of themselves, but of that refined realm that they're in, of consciousness that they're in. Anyway, so that's why this is important. I think that happens with every level, that when they're born from a higher realm into a lower realm, they somehow still, for a while, still have that light in these higher, and then when they go into that lower realm, they still have that light at first, but then that declines, over time. Anyway, and that light is, of their refined merit and virtue, of their consciousness, of their karmic causes and conditions, at that point, at that stage. Anyway, so where are we? So okay, um, so yeah, so let me say it again. The humans of this time, this very early point, in the Vivartakalpa, uh, the Vivartakalpa, which is the Kalpa of evolution. Um, uh, bear with me a sec, coming back. So yeah, so again, the first, so during the Vivartakalpa, the first humans appear. They are not like present day humans, but I'm sorry, I'm repeating this again, but I just want to make sure we cover this because it's really important. But they are beings shining in their own light, capable of moving through the air in a more broader meaning, broader scope, broader breadth, broader breadth, if you like. Um, uh, Capable of moving through the air without mechanical aid, living for a very long time, and that's a very yeah, it's like very long time, and are not requiring substance. So they're not requiring sustenance. Interesting. They are more like a type of lower deity than present day humans are. So probably this, if they have sustenance, it's much more subtle kind of thing or energy that they utilize or consume on a much more higher, refined, subtle level. Over time, they acquire a taste for physical nutriment, as they consume it. So this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about. And over time, they acquire a taste for physical nutriment, and as they consume it, their bodies become heavier and more like human bodies. They lose their ability to shine and begin to acquire differences in their appearance, and their length of life decreases. They differentiate into two sexes and become sexually active. Okay, so what I was talking about, they're describing here as human beings. Interesting, a type of human being. I didn't realize that. Um, these beings that initially become stars and then become, you know, interesting. Okay, so moving through air is through space and time, and this more subtle level of energy of that world at the time. So yeah, so this is what I was talking about actually. What they're talking about here are these are humans, are light beings. Um, so over time, they acquire a taste for physical nutriment. And that's when I was talking about that honey-like, sweet-like substance. And as they consume it, their bodies become heavier and more like human bodies. Okay, so they're more like they probably start out as just these lights, this bright, subtle, shining lights, and then kind of start being embodied into like almost something that almost looks, it's a light form, like you ever see in sci-fi, these light beings. that are in like, have a humanoid form. So they probably start to acquire that as they consume this nutriment. They start looking kind of, manifesting more as like these humanoid shaped light. Probably this is just my own speculation. This is I'm bringing in my sci-fi, understanding of things into this, which I think, all of these teachings are part of the provisional teachings of the Buddha. So I don't I don't have any problem kind of approaching it in this way, because they're provisional, and it's in the teaching. It's supposed to reach you in your own karmic causes and conditions in whatever way that reaches you and teaches you, and and you encounter that and you experience that. So anyway, um, so yeah, they come. Everybody, they lose their ability to shine and begin to acquire differences in their appearance and their life, uh, and their length of life decreases. They differentiate into two sexes and begin to become sexually active. Uh, then greed, theft, and violence arise among them, and they establish social distinctions and government, and elect a king to rule them, called Mahasamata, the great appointed one. So here's that first king, that first Chakravartin. And that's an important thing that we'll be coming to in this series at some point. Some of them begin to hunt and eat the flesh of animals, which have now come into existence. So I'm going to put some links to some other videos that describe this in more detail, and probably better than I do in the description of this video, because it's very interesting and it's important to get your head around. So yeah, so that is the so we've gotten through the Vivartakalpa and what happens in that, and discussed that, and I've reflected on that, and kind of giving you my kind of how I understand it or view it or got my head around it, over years of learning about Buddhist cosmology and Buddhist teachings, and absorbing it, and trying to kind of understand it as best I can within my karmic causes and conditions and limitations and such. But so yeah, I think probably good to leave it there before we get into the next, the next kalpa, because this is where some real drama begins. I mean, there's drama in this bit too, actually, that like when they, so when they differentiate into two sexes and become sexually active, that's when there's points where people become very unhappy, like other people seeing them. Anyway, there'll be some links in my about in my in the description of this video by teachers and people that are much better at explaining all this than myself in much more detail. But it's important to get to understand the context of our own world, and the Buddha at some point did say it was good to contemplate these worlds of Buddhism. It's good to look at them. Um, and I think for me, this is for me, I had to get my head around this. I had to embrace this. I had to understand and experience it in some way, to really understand Buddhism. This is me personally. But anyway, so like I said, we'll leave it there before we go into the kalpa of the kalpa of evolution duration, because that's where a lot of drama, and that's where all of our drama, the human drama, is, that we can more relate to and understand somewhat, starts happening. So we'll do that next time on the Lotus Pod. Travel with me in the Kalachakra time machine. to many past places, worlds, and dimensions of Buddhist cosmology. So thanks for joining me on this journey so far, and we will catch you next time. Just do some, join me in Gasho if you're watching this, if you wish. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda, Namanda. All right, take care until next time.